Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. March 18th in the year of our Lord 2022. I'm Hugh Hewitt on the West Coast, heading back to the Beltway this afternoon. I'll talk to you Monday back from inside the Beltway as war continues in Ukraine. Let me begin with the Ministry of Defense. The United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense posts a handy summary of all that is going on in the Ukraine war at the end of the day. And, of course, we're not going to reveal anything that's classified, but it's useful. It's a good place to go. Russian forces have made minimal progress on land, sea, or air in recent days, said the UK's Ministry of Defense on Thursday. In its latest defense intelligence update posted on social media, the MOD said that while the Russian invasion is largely stalled, the Ukraine resistance remained well coordinated. I was asked about this last night on Special Report by Brett Baer. We opened up by talking about what is the Russian army doing and not doing. Cut number 18.
Hugh, this is fascinating. I mean, we're entering 4 weeks now with this Russian army that is not performing.
Not only not performing, it's being decimated, or almost decimated. 7,000 killed in action, according to the New York Times this morning. That's the same number of dead in action as the Americans lost in the 34-day campaign to take Iwo Jima, as the New York Times pointed out. Add to that those who have been wounded or otherwise taken out of the fight by defecting or running away or simply being incompetent, and you have a military that's gone over the threshold of being unable to achieve its basic mission. Now, confirmation bias is at work. We all want Ukraine to win. We want to read good news and avoid bad news. But it's pretty hard to find anything good to say about the Russian military performance, and there's lots to admire about the Ukrainian generalship and their fighting soldiers, men and women. There is. It's an extraordinary story of heroism and courage and fighting back, but the other headlines are just terrible. Desperation mounts for Ukrainians in Mariupol as Russia tries to capture key city. They've cut the whole city off. It's starving. It's just an awful humanitarian disaster. Meanwhile, Russian missiles have struck Lviv. How do you say it? Lviv. Lviv. For the first time. Up until this point, Putin has left western Ukraine alone until he sent 2 days ago a missile strike against the NATO base there, the training base there, not a NATO base, the Ukrainian base where Ukrainian troops are occasionally trained by members of NATO stations, but it's not a NATO base. So they took that out 10 miles from the Polish border 2 days ago, and then last night they struck Lviv. And they're losing, and so Putin is going full Stalin. Now, by the way, he's also accusing Russians of being murderous traitors and get ready for the purges. He's just gone round the bend. Russia is destroying Kharkiv, according to the New York Times, Ukraine's second largest city. Famed for its poets, artists, writers, and eye-popping architecture, Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, has long occupied a place in the collective imagination of both Ukrainians and Russians. These days, however, it is notable for something else. Its searing scenes of destruction. The Washington Post follows with Russia batters devastated cities with bombs as the fierce resistance stalls the ground advance. Russian troops advance slowly amid heavy fighting and slugging to reply. They're not getting resupplied. Slovakia will send Ukraine S-300 air defenses, which are in good working order immediately if NATO agrees to backfill its weaponry, which we should do. There's some political posturing going on with the Democratic-controlled press, saying that Republicans voted against $13.6 billion for Ukraine. No, they voted against a ridiculous package full of pork within which was contained $13.6 billion for Ukraine. They're going to get the money anyway, but the Democrats are attempting to say that we don't support Ukraine, we being Republicans. That's just nuts. We want it stripped down, we want more, and we want the MiGs, and everybody knows this. And people are not going to be fooled by the idiotic talking points put out by mainstream media from the DNC that repeatedly say the same thing. They're also not going to be fooled by the deal, quote, deal that's going to come out of Vienna, midwifed by the Russians with the Iranians, whereby the Russians, get a lot of money and evade sanctions, and the Iranians get sanctions removed, and the IRGC, which is trying to kill John Bolton and others in the United States, gets a green pass. I really believe the disgust with Secretary Blinken, Deputy Secretary Sherman, Ron Klain in the White House, and the infirm president who may not know what he's signing in the details. I doubt very much he has any idea what's in this deal from the JCPOA. As Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said to me yesterday on the air, the Biden foreign policy seems to have as its objective proving that the Obama foreign policy was not a disaster, which it was. Other good news, computer programmers are taking aim at Russia's propaganda wall. Good. If every hacker in the West just hacks them, we'll be in good shape. President Biden is going to talk to Xi Jinping of China today. This scares me because Xi is very, very bad and very, very smart, and Joe Biden is very, very naive and infirm. Hours before the big call, the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy sailed their carrier through the Taiwan Strait. Meanwhile, Russia is now using deepfakes. This is where they produce videos from well-known people that has used computer technology to have them saying stupid things or things that are contrary to their country's position. Russia has targeted Priti Patel and Ben Wallace with the deepfakes, they're called. Expect deepfakes. They don't have to deepfake Tony Blinken or Wendy Sherman. They're very accommodating with what Russia needs said. They can't deepfake Joe Biden because it's impossible to fake that. That just has got them all confused. A couple of quick economic stories. The mortgage rate rose above 4% for the first time since 2019 yesterday. So AndrewandTodd.com are sponsors of my show. I do not owe them this. I owe you this. AndrewandTodd.com. Go get your mortgage now. 888-888-1172. Or go get your son or daughter to go and co-sign with them. Go get your grandchildren to go and co-sign with them. AndrewandTodd.com or Sierra Pacific Mortgage. Call them at 888-888-1172. 888-888-1172. Even a Steelers fan can remember that, right? And just get it done. Otherwise, you're going to be totally screwed in 2 years. And you're going to be back into the arm business. And some of you won't be able to do that. And you'll still use Andrew and Todd. But I'm telling you, today is the day to finally get moving because you don't want to pay 5% for 30 years. You want to do 3%. I also got asked, the Hunter Biden laptop. What a surprise. It happened to be true. And I want you to remember this. The Russians attacked our 2016 election by hacking into the DNC and releasing the emails from John Podesta, that hurt Hillary Clinton. No doubt about it. I don't think they made a difference in that election. That election was a vote against Hillary. In 2020, our election was attacked by big tech, by Twitter and Facebook, when they banned the news of Hunter Biden's laptop. Well, yesterday, the New York Times confirmed that the laptop is real, that Hunter Biden is in a world of hurt. And I got asked this about that on Special Report by Bret Baier last night on Fox News Channel, cut number 17.
It's pretty amazing, Ben, if you think back to that time and how egregious it is now.
And I'm more troubled by the other people mentioned in this incident than I am actually by Joe Biden. Joe Biden defending his own record or the record of his son is something that I think a lot of people are used to coming from politicians. But look at what big tech did when it came to this story, shutting down debate. You couldn't even direct message the stories in question on Twitter.
It's exactly right. I just wanted you to hear it from someone else. He is exactly right. They shut it all down. My commentary on it is at cut number 17. Cut number 19.
I guess the tech part of this, Hugh, is really, really amazing.
When and if the House goes to Republican control, they've got to bring in Twitter and Facebook, because Twitter and Facebook no doubt interfered with the 2020 election in the same way that the Russians interfered with the 2016 election. Now, 2016 was not close. Trump won going away. 2020 was whisper thin. So what Twitter did and what Facebook did undeniably had an impact on the election. I'd point out that they're attempting to minimize Hunter Biden's exposure right now, but it's not just the Foreign Agents Registration Act, it's the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, it's the Al Capone tax evasion stuff, it's the False Statements Act. He's in a world of hurt, as are every single person that conspired with him to conceal this. I can't wait for those hearings, Brett. We have to get Twitter and Facebook on notice that they cannot do this to our election again. They can't. No, I'm not saying that President Biden won the election. I've said that since the day after the election. He won the election. But Twitter and Facebook attacked the election just like the Russians did in 2016. And people need to know that. They perverted the results. And that's big tech. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. If you're of a certain age, you know that this is the Batman theme. The 1960 TV show, which was far better. I would have watched 3 hours of the 1960s TV show. Adam West would have been a better Batman. And we have here with me Sonny Bunch on a failure to warn Friday. It's the first one in over 2 years. But Robert Pattinson is the Batman, and a remarkably bad movie that may still be going on was strongly recommended to me at this very hour 1 week ago. And so I made time that afternoon to go, and I got out of the theater barely alive. And Sonny Bunch is responsible for my going. So, Sonny, we're deducting all your airline miles from last year as a result of this failure to warn.
For the record, I wouldn't say that I strongly recommended it. My review was very mixed negative. It's my both written and oral reviews were not hugely positive. I did not dislike it as much as you did, at least on first viewing. But I said it's a mess of a movie. It is a messily plotted, I think fairly well acted movie. I did enjoy the acting in it, and I enjoyed some of the action scenes. But like, it's way too long, and it is for all the talk about this being, the first movie with Batman as a detective in a long time. He really doesn't do much detecting. He just kind of gets led around by the Riddler the whole time.
Yeah, Sonny, I've got to say, this is the Godfather 3 of the Batman franchise. There is no humor in this. Robert Pattinson is completely, he's just an unappealing. There's no winsomeness, there's no humor, there's nothing in this movie. And the cat girl, who's not the cat girl, as you pointed out, she's awfully good. They all look good. Just Matt Reeves blew it. I would let him make another movie.
Well, I mean, look, here, so, you call it the Godfather 3 of Batman movies, but clearly you've never seen Batman and Robin.
Oh, I have. I've seen them all. And I think this is worse because this goes on so long.
Well, that one was long, too. I think that one's like 2 hours and 20 minutes or something. I mean, it goes on and on. No, look, this is, I mostly agree with you. I mean, it's way too long. If the movie had ended, spoilers, if the movie had ended in the scene with Batman and Riddler in the prison together talking, it would have been I think a much better, tighter movie. And instead, there's like another 30 minutes after that that are totally unconnected to the rest of the picture. It's an enormous.
Well, I want you to know, Sonny, that when you check your airline miles and it's gone to zero, it's not a Russian hack. It's not because of your stance on the Ukraine in a war. It's because of Batman. Do you have anything to give me this weekend?
Well, this weekend, again, it's kind of a slow weekend because everybody's running out of the way of the Batman. And for good reason. It's making tons and tons of money. It's doing
easily. It's like the circus.
Unlike you and I, Hugh, people seem to like this movie. It's got a solid A- on Cinema Score. Solid, strong recommends from audiences who have seen it. So other people who aren't you and aren't me, seem to have liked it. But we're a rare breed. We're the rare right ones.
I have a feeling you're trying to hide behind my shadow of outrage.
Well, I'm not. I mean, it is what it is. So like I said, not a ton of new stuff in theaters recently, but on Hulu there is a new movie. I want to talk about a new movie on Hulu, which is called Deep Water. So Deep Water is directed by Adrian Lyne. Do you remember Adrian Lyne?
No, I do not.
Adrian Lyne is the director of Fatal Attraction, Flashdance, Indecent Proposal, Unfaithful.
My God, how old is he?
He's like 82 now.
Okay,
but, he's 81, 82.
Flashdance.
Flashdance. Remember Flashdance?
Yeah, Terry Bradshaw was playing quarterback for the Steelers when that came out.
So Adrian Lyne is basically, he and Paul Verhoeven, right, were kings of the, for lack of a better word, the erotic thriller, the kind of sexy either murder mystery or thriller type movie, or just kind of an adult movie that was or a movie for adults that was kind of butting up against what an adult movie is, right?
Right.
A little bit of sex, a little bit of nudity. He is back with a new movie called Deep Water. It got dumped onto Hulu because when Disney bought When Disney bought up 20th Century Fox, they weren't sure what to do with it. They were like, well, we don't really want to release this in theaters with the Disney label. We can't put it on Disney Plus. I guess we'll put it on Hulu. And it is very much a throwback to that, kind of sexy movie from the mid 80s or early 90s, starring Ana de Armas, who folks might remember from the latest Bond movie. She was the Cuban spy that he meets up in Cuba, and Blade Runner 2049. She played one of the androids in that movie. I love Ana de Armas. She's delightful. She's very attractive. She was like practically made in a lab for a movie like this. She gets
good line.
Very, very attractive and kind of smoldering. She stars with Ben Affleck, who plays a rich drone designer. He designs the microchips in drones and has retired from that line of work. They are spending their days together in New Orleans, and she is constantly cheating on him. She's just cheating on him all over the place, and all of his friends know about it. It drives Ben Affleck a little bit crazy with rage, with murderous rage. Again, this movie is this movie's not a movie for kids. Don't watch it until the kids go to bed. You don't want them to stumble onto any of this. But it is one of these kind of sexy murder movies that were hugely popular back in the 80s.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Okay, I will watch it now, Sonny. I have to go to my new Sonny Bunch project.
Okay.
This is my new pitch to Sonny Bunch. I was on Fox News, a special report with Brett Baer yesterday, and Howie Kurtz was on critiquing the Hunter Biden story. But it was after all this Ukrainian footage, and it seems to me that the networks don't know how to cover the war other than by saying it's really bad, and there's no idea of geography, et cetera. A film critic would actually help the networks right now cover the war because it's so disjointed in a place that we don't understand very well. What do you make of the war coverage as a media critic in terms of conveying what's actually happening and what the Russians are doing, whether they're winning or losing? It's just a big, hot mess. Except on Brett's show. I think it's the one show that tries to lay out what's A followed by B followed by C. What does Sonny Bunch think?
Well, I mean, look, there's an information problem, right? I mean, that's the real issue here, is that we don't have pure information. We don't have a good sense of what the actual. I mean, to the extent that we have no idea how many Russians have actually died, right? I've seen 5 different stories in the last. Yeah,
New York Times said 7,000 yesterday, right?
Right. So New York Times says 7,000, but I saw 9,000 the day before that. I saw like 3,000 the day before. That's what the Russians are saying, is their high water mark. And like let's say it's 7,000. I mean, that's an enormous number. I mean, I think that the way you tell this story is purely in the number of Russian losses, and you compare it to something Americans are pretty familiar with, right? Iraq and Afghanistan. If the Russians have lost 7,000 people in 2.5 3 weeks,
3 weeks, yep,
then that is more people than have been lost in that was more Americans than were killed in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that is a number I think people can
over 20 years over 20 years
over 20 years, over 2 huge wars and 2 very foreign ugly places. Like the sheer number of casualties and the sheer amount of material lost. I mean, this is the other thing, is that like the most stirring image, the 2 sets of stirring images from this conflict so far are the flattened apartment blocks, the bombed out hospitals and that sort of thing, but also just the average Ukrainian hooking a tank up to the back of his tractor and hauling it away.
Well, this is what goes to my Sonny Bunch project. If you were on one of the networks, you could do a daily review of what we learned and saw about Ukraine and why it was good or bad, informative or war porn or whatever you want to call it. It just seems to me that the media critics this is not in their wheelhouse. They haven't covered modern war like this.
Well, nobody's covered modern war like this,
right?
I mean, this is the problem. Like, this is the first real social media conflict. This is the first real conflict that is coming to us directly from the battlefield, from raw, unmediated footage. I mean, Vietnam, right? The Vietnam War had a lot of relatively rough footage, but that was footage that was all edited through networks. You know, it was mediated through the lens of anchors we trusted, et cetera, et cetera. Here, we're just getting tons and tons of information, and part of this is my one criticism of Ukraine, who I think is absolutely 100% on the right, and everyone loves Zelensky for good reason. And but my one criticism of Ukraine would be that they do occasionally get a little over their skis in terms of, you know, some of the announcements that they made early on, some of the things that they were saying about, you know, the Russian warship and the island, you know, that story kind
Snake
of
Island. Yeah, we all want them to win, so confirmation bias is a huge problem.
Exactly.
That's why a critic is useful.
Exactly. But the as a critic, there's not, look, a critic can't really, a media critic is not well suited to sort through the various truths and untruths. They just aren't, because we're not there on the ground. This is why we need, I mean, look, this is why we need good journalism. This is why you need good reporters on the ground who are writing stories.
You know, it's funny, think about it, because I think what it shows is that we need old John Chancellor style news, which is no stand-ups in the middle of Kyiv, but a lot of straight information that what we can confirm with all the provisos you just noted. And I just don't see any TV critics. There used to be a guy in the Washington Post who was pretty good on this. Tom Shales. Is there anyone who does this anymore? I mean, Howie does it for Fox and Brian does it for CNN, but does anyone do it sort of from the new information age perspective of it's a social media conflict?
Well, I mean, like, honestly, it would be somebody like Taylor Lorenz, right? Like, the TikTok,
I don't know Taylor Lorenz.
The TikTok darling over at the Washington Post.
That's why I don't know Taylor Lorenz.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, the problem is that a media critic, just by the nature of their job, is not in a good position to sort out what is true and what is not true, and that's really the thing that matters most here. Because I mean, I have some minor critiques about, like, the maps that we get shown, right? These maps where, you know, the red of Russia is encroaching in, but really they're only controlling the roads. It's not like they're holding massive swaths of territory, so it's very misleading. You know, you hear stories from people in Kiev talking about, oh, our city is not encircled. We're not, you know, crushed.
Yeah, I would love to see you write something about this, Sonny Bunch, because I think it needs a critic's eye. Now, my friend, follow him on Twitter at Sonny Bunch. He's bereft of airline miles, so you'll be able to find him. He can't go anywhere now. He's in prison until he comes back with even harsher reviews of the Batman. Sonny, thank you. Hugh Hewitt Show, a day late for St. Patrick's Day, Joe. I'm sorry. You could have given us a great St. Patrick's Day poem.
Happy St. Joseph's Day Eve.
Oh, there you go. Good comeback.
Well, we don't go with all that corned beef and cabbage. We have pastry instead.
Yeah.
Lovely Zeppole di San Giuseppe, a wonderful Italian tradition. So there. But I'll get to the poem instead of worrying about
ethnicity. Yeah.
Okay. A famous politician who had motives less than chaste repeatedly admonished, "Let no crisis go to waste." He knew that during upheavals, people have a shared desire for a flood of interventions when their hair is caught on fire. Thus, catastrophic progress has most often been enacted by those wily legislators when the voters are distracted. Something in the present, therefore, isn't sitting right. Considering their strategy, I'm kept up through the night. For with some clouded reasoning that no one understands, the crises are so many, but they're sitting on their hands. There's a crisis in the Ukraine and a crisis at the border, a record-setting deficit and lack of law and order. Classroom scores are falling and overdoses rising. The price of gas sets records. Now, isn't that surprising? Everyone acknowledges the speaker is so clever, so it strikes me as amazing she's done nothing whatsoever. And what of Bernie Sanders? He's the man with all the answers, from patching up the atmosphere to curing all the cancers. Pouncing on a crisis is political old hat, but this group is so incompetent, they can't even do that.
Huh?
How's that agenda going? By Tarzana Joe.
Yeah, Leader McConnell told us yesterday that the president's a nice guy, but he's been wrong for 40 years like Robert Gates. So I hope the agenda stays where it is in the basement, where we'd be better served if the president just went to Tarzana Joe. A wonderful effort. Are you open for business at TarzanaJoe.com?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Now, I reach out to all my clients and say, if I'm owing you a poem, send me an email, because I had I think I have computeritis or something.
Not again?
The site is fine, the website is perfect, but the email, something very strange happened to the email, and all my correspondence went to the trash file, so it's very strange.
TarzanaJoe at Reagan.com up and running again?
Yes, it wasn't the Reagan.com part of my email that went bad.
No, I'm glad to hear that, because Ronald Reagan never went bad. TarzanaJoe at Reagan.com for your poetry needs. Joe, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt in California. Headed back to the Beltway after the show today, and I will be talking to you Monday from inside the Beltway again. Joined now by Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty. Good morning, Senator. Great to have you back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
It's good to be with you this morning, Hugh. Thank you.
Now, you know Bill Haslam, your former governor, smart guy, and you may know Jimmy, his brother, right?
I do.
Would you call Jimmy Haslam up and ask him what the hell is he thinking about going for Deshaun Watson? I really, as a Browns fan, I'm just asking you, Senator. I don't ask for much from senators, but just have Jimmy call me and we can talk about it, because it's the dumbest thing I've seen the Browns ever do. Senator, let's get serious. The appeasement of Iran that is unfolding before our eyes, I can't even believe we're going to do this with Putin as its midwife, about to make money off of it, even as he butchers innocents. Are there Democrats who agree with us that this is nuts?
There must be. I mean, the Biden administration lives in an alternate universe, Hugh. We've talked about this before. They just seem to be on some sort of delusional fantasy. They're driven so much by this Green New Deal religion that they subscribe to that they can't see reality. I mean, Iran just hit very near our U.S. consulate in Iraq.
Right, missiles on Erbil.
Table.
Yesterday, Leader McConnell on this show said the foreign policy of the Biden administration appears to be to vindicate the foreign policy of the Obama administration no matter what. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think that observation seems correct. It's the same team that's back on the ground. And, I'll note that the person that's leading the negotiations, Malley, is not a Senate-confirmed person. He's decided to outsource the negotiations to Russia, as you mentioned. And it's just beyond my comprehension, anyone's comprehension, that we would allow Russia to negotiate anything for the good of America. There's no way they have our best interests at heart. And yet Rob Malley has seemed willing to outsource all of this so he can sit outside the room while the negotiations are going on, let the Russians sit at the table with the Iranians and negotiate what's going to be best for America. It's ludicrous.
Now, Senator, you're a China expert by virtue of having been the ambassador to Japan, and if there's any country that's more worried than us about China, it's Japan. China sent its carrier down the Taiwan Strait today, right before President Biden calls President Xi. What message does that send? Put on your ambassador hat.
Well, it's extraordinarily provocative.
Right.
The statements have come from Japan, have come from the United States about maintaining the status quo in that strait, and China seems determined to disturb the status quo. They have their designs on Taiwan. They've made that clear. They continue to threaten. And you think about the strategic value of Taiwan, given our dependence on semiconductors, Taiwan being the world's largest producer, it's extraordinarily strategic to Japan, to America, that we maintain a free and open Taiwan. And China is intent on continuing to escalate its threats there. We cannot lose sight of what China is doing right now in the world.
Senator, it seems to me that President Xi has contempt for the United States because he's acting. The China carrier stuff, I can understand why he doesn't. Well, he sends his people to yell at Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan in Anchorage and for 7 hours in private in Italy. But this is just contemptuous of us.
It certainly is. But there's another action that's going on and has been going on, and that is the fact that China continues to send fentanyl into Mexico. They know where it's headed. It's headed right across this porous border that Joe Biden has created by dropping all protections on our southern border. It's coming into states like my home state of Tennessee. It's killing our kids. It's killing our citizens, and it's a different type of war, but it's a quiet war that China is waging on America. They know full well what they're doing. President Trump asked President Xi to stop sending fentanyl into the United States. I guess that was back in 2018. This was at G20 meeting in Buenos Aires. She agreed to that, but he didn't agree to stop sending it to Mexico. So that's escalated. The Chinese drug dealers are in partnership with the cartels in Mexico. They're flooding our border with fentanyl, and every month the deaths and the overdoses from fentanyl are worse than the month before. I talk with our law enforcement officers here in Tennessee regularly, and this is something that we've got to take account of as well.
And you know what our espionage problem is. The Chinese Communist Party has got agents in place throughout the United States, and they are blackmailing good Chinese American citizens into helping the regime by threatening their family members. Has the Senate at least woken up? We are in Cold War 2.0, and this time we're up against a better opponent than the first one.
That's certainly true. I mean, there have been certain actions taken, the China consulate in Houston, that sort of thing, but this administration has been woefully weak in dealing with China. They want to call it, I'm trying to remember the word that they use. Use it strategic competition or managed competition. I think that's what they call it with China. It's so naive.
I call it appeasement. I've been listening to not Martin Gilbert, the great Martin Gilbert is dead, of course, but Andrew Roberts, his successor in interest to profiling Churchill, his book about Churchill, Walking with Destiny. And it's 1940, and Neville Chamberlain is about to lose the premiership, the prime ministership, because appeasement has come home to roost. And Churchill records to one of his friends, were it not that I was right for all those years, were we not in this, if we had built the weapon? Is there any change in the mood in the Congress to get serious? I see the arm of the DNC, that is legacy media, out there hitting some of your colleagues for voting against the package this week, because it was just $13 billion of aid to the Ukraine wrapped in $100 billion of pork, and that's unacceptable.
Well, the mainstream media wants to hit me and my colleagues for anything that they can. It's amazing how tough everybody gets, after they see a very emotional outpouring by Zelensky, and I think he's done an excellent job because he's put Ukraine first. He's reached out, he's touched the hearts and minds of people here in America, around the world. We've been locked down for better than 2 years, with deprived of our liberty, deprived of our freedom. I think that Zelensky's hit a real chord, but, to step up and pour billions of dollars into protecting another country's borders, when at the same time we won't protect our own border, that's tough. That's tough.
And we need serious defense. Larry Arnn, the other Churchill biographer, said last week, first thing Churchill did was build weapons. Because hard power is always better than soft power. Soft power doesn't exist without hard power, and I don't see that in the $7 trillion that has been spent since you got to the Senate. Did we spend any of the special spending on defense at all, Senator Hagerty?
No, and I think the best evidence of the way the Democrats are approaching this is looking at their new budget that they put forward. What Biden came out with was massive increases in all of the social spending programs. The only two areas that when you look at it net of inflation that he actually defunded were the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. Anything that would keep America safe and keep America strong. That's what this administration is basically de-emphasized. And this is a point in time when we need to be putting far more emphasis on this. Instead, what they've done is pour trillions of dollars into the economy. We have stimulated the economy, overheated the economy to a point that we're seeing inflation that we've never seen before. That was the direct byproduct of what happened in March of last year when the Democrats dropped another $2 trillion into the economy, sending checks to people that were incarcerated behind bars. They were not means testing the checks. Some people were employed, some people weren't. They weren't checking. They just flooded the zone with money. And what's happened is we've had massive, massive increases in inflation. But probably the worst thing that this administration has done is their war on the oil and gas industry here in America. And that has been an incredibly weakening to our own economy and driven prices to the roof here in America. But it's also driven energy prices up around the world. And Vladimir Putin has been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the massive windfall that they've created because he's one of the largest producers of energy in the world. And if you think about it, we found ourselves unwittingly fueling the Russian war machine that's being deployed in Ukraine right now.
No, I want to give you some breaking news, Senator. You probably haven't seen this yet. Russian missiles have hit an aircraft facility in western Ukraine. Long-range strike near Lviv is the second attack close to the Polish border. Do you think we have thought through what the NATO response will be if Putin miscalculates or a Russian technician puts in the wrong coordinates, as Admiral Stavridis put forward as a hypothetical on the show this week. Do you think NATO is ready? Does Joe Biden have a plan?
It's hard to say what Joe Biden's plan is, but I think that Biden has at least been clear about NATO, that America retains its resolve to abide by its treaty obligations to NATO, and that the NATO nations will step up and protect every square inch of NATO territory. I've been encouraged by the fact that rather than divide NATO, which I'm sure Vladimir Putin and President Xi thought would happen, NATO's actually come together in a more strong. We've seen Russia actually consolidate NATO in a way that I wasn't expecting. You see German leaders step up and say they're going to actually, bring their defense spending up to 2%. That's been their commitment for years that they've chosen not to live up to. They've chosen to allow the United States to subsidize their defense. Now they're going to step up and do what they need to do. That could well be because they see the Biden administration as less reliable.
Senator, the New York Times yesterday said that the Russians have lost 7,000 troops KIA already, which is more than we lost at Iwo Jima, more than we lost KIA in Afghanistan and Iraq combined over 20 years. So he's got a major problem. They also just said the risk of a nuclear weapon being used is not zero. And that's the first time since 1962 that I've heard people talk like that. Does this administration have the horsepower that it needs to I really do think nobody's at home at the White House.
It's a grave concern what's happening at the White House. Again, you started out this segment talking about Iran. I can't possibly explain what the strategic objectives are of this administration when they're appeasing an organization, appeasing a group of terrorists like Iran. When they're talking about taking the Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard off the list of terrorists, it's just hard to imagine.
I think, Senator, they're locking down box seats at the Aspen Institute summer show and at Davos. That's what I think they're doing. Senator, I'm going to let you go, but remember, when you give Jimmy Haslam a call, he is free to call me. I will give him all the advice he needs on not doing things that strike longtime fans as just as dumb can be. Senator, have a great weekend. I'll see you around the Beltway in a few weeks, I hope.
Thank you, Hugh.
Be well.